Imagine sitting in a room that is perfectly still. No hum of a refrigerator, no distant traffic, not even the tick of a clock. But inside your head, it's even quieter. You try to plan your day, but you don't hear your own voice narrating the steps. You don't hear yourself say, "I should grab coffee first," or "I hope I'm not late." There is only a profound, absolute silence. For most of the world, the mind is a noisy place. We argue with ourselves, we rehearse conversations before they happen, and we provide a constant play-by-play of our own lives. But what if I told you that there are people who live without that inner voice entirely? They exist in a world without an internal narrator. This phenomenon is real, and it's called Anendophasia. For decades, science assumed that thinking and language were inseparable. We believed that to think was to speak to oneself without moving one's lips. But we were wrong. We are discovering that the human experience exists on a massive spectrum. On one end, there are people with a hyper-vocal inner monologue, a voice so vivid they can change its pitch or mimic a celebrity. On the other end, there is the void. Think back to the last time you felt a pang of regret. What happened in your mind? I shouldn't have done that. But for someone without an inner voice, that regret doesn't manifest in sentences. It appears as a pure emotion, a physical weight in the chest, or perhaps a fleeting flash of an image. They don't hear their thoughts, they simply know them. This sounds like a disability to some, a terrifying loss of self. How do they plan for the future? How do they reflect on the past without a voice to guide or judge them? But here is the fascinating part. People without an inner monologue often report a different kind of mental efficiency. Without a constant narrator commenting on every action, they are often more present. They don't get trapped in endless loops of what if or I should have said this. For them, the moment is everything, because their mind isn't cluttered by the echoes of unnecessary words. However, losing your inner voice isn't always something you're born with. There is a deeper tragedy when someone who has lived with a voice their entire life suddenly loses it due to trauma or a stroke. Imagine a writer who used to hear every sentence vibrate in their mind before it hit the page, suddenly finding their brain has become a mute cave. It's not just losing the ability to speak, it's losing a lifelong companion. It's losing the witness to your own existence. But what happens when the silence becomes a barrier? For those who have never had an inner voice, their reality is built on concepts and shadows. They don't rehearse their coffee order in their head. They simply arrive at the counter and the words emerge. It's a leap of faith every time they speak. Yet for the rest of us, that constant inner chatter acts as a safety net. It's how we solve complex problems, how we comfort ourselves in the dark, and how we build the story of who we are. Recent studies suggest that this hidden silence might actually change how we perceive time. When you don't narrate your life, the past doesn't linger as a series of spoken regrets, and the future doesn't loom as a series of whispered anxieties. Life becomes a flow of visual data and raw feeling. Some call it a superpower of focus. Others call it a haunting isolation. Consider the inner ear. When you read a book, do you hear the characters' voices? Do you hear the tone of this narration right now? For a significant portion of the population, the answer is a flat no. They see the words as symbols, processing the meaning instantly without the middleman of sound. It's a faster way to read, perhaps, but is it a lonelier way to live? The mystery goes deeper when we look at the intersection of creativity and silence. Many architects and engineers report a lack of inner speech, favoring a 3D mental workspace where objects move and click together without a single word being uttered. Their thoughts are blueprints, not sentences. This reminds us that human intelligence isn't a one-size-fits-all engine. We are a collection of different operating systems, some running on text, some on audio, and some on pure silent logic.
So, where do you fall on this spectrum?
As you listen to these words, is there a second version of you echoing them back? Or is there just understanding? We often take for granted that the person standing next to us sees the world exactly as we do. We assume their self feels like our self. But the reality is that behind every pair of eyes is a universe governed by different laws. Some are crowded cities of noise, while others are vast, quiet oceans. Losing a voice, or never having one, isn't a sign of being less. It is a testament to the incredible flexibility of the human brain. It shows us that consciousness doesn't need words to exist. It only needs the capacity to feel, to observe, and to be. Maybe, in a world that has become far too loud, we all need a bit of that inner silence. A break from the critic in our heads that never stops talking. Because sometimes it is in the deepest silence that we finally stop talking to ourselves and start actually listening to the world.